Jim from Fresno. Sanders is the only one whose support is enthusiastic enough to compete well in the general because he will get the most campaign volunteers. I think that's an oversimplification, but I think more or less that's correct. I mean, my theory is this, that there is an enormous amount of people who are highly motivated to vote. And this is a good time to talk about this. Sanders appears to be, surging. And,
yeah, baby.
And I say appears because there has only been one poll taken in Iowa in the month of December. Now, I have a feeling there's a couple of reasons for this. One, and apparently Bill Scher tweeted out something which I think was explained, at least some of this tweet. In the last time in Iowa, 2007, when we had a non-incumbent election on the Democratic side, the Iowa caucus was in January, and in November of that year, right, which would be the equivalent distance from the caucus, there was something like 13 polls. And the equivalent of in 2018, there is one. I don't know what it was in 15, to be honest with you, 2015. But so we don't really know what's going on there. And there's a bunch of reasons why that's the case. The more expensive, I suspect also like December is a bad month to poll because people are just
frazzled.
Yeah. But I don't know what is going on. Somebody's calling me. We don't really know what's going on. Like the only poll that we have shows that Bernie Sanders is gaining, almost in a tie with Biden, but there's a 5% margin of error, and so he's 1 point behind Biden. But Buttigieg is about 4 or 5 points behind them. I mean, so you get a notion, and then Warren. The whole point of Bernie's campaign, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but the one of the foundational things about it is that they are going to out-organize, that they are organizing. And it's not just like sort of a typical, he's got a great ground game. I mean, and I will say this, who knows? That's all we heard about the Clinton campaign. They're going to out ground game them. Now, the ground game ended up being, we have the better algorithms and we're not even using people. But I would imagine, in fact, I know for a fact that when we talk about organizing, it is people. With Sanders' campaign, it is people. And maybe they're really horrific at it. And maybe, but I'm just trying to come up with like the scenario how we could overestimate the strength of it.
And not just for the election either. It's a movement that understands it needs to go beyond the election.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at in terms of like the ground game, like that it is running parallel to a political campaign. And so we'll see in Iowa. But if it is the case that these polling are starting to show this, and theoretically part of what Sanders is doing is that some of their support is subterranean. In other words, it shouldn't show up in the polling because the whole theory of the campaign is we're going to pull in, not 50% of our votes are going to come from the margins, maybe not even 20% or 15%, but we're going to pull in an extra 5%. People who've been sitting on the sidelines, maybe even 3%, 2%. I mean, if you were to pull in an extra 0.1% of the electorate, you win in 2016. You're talking 230 million people, and the election was lost because of 75,000 votes, more or less. But I have a theory that is completely based in nothing but just conjecture on my part, that when you look at Joe Biden's support, when you look at Joe Biden's black support, let's say in South Carolina, that these are high propensity voters, that the support for Joe Biden comes from people who are going to vote no matter what. And they're going to come out and they're going to vote against Donald Trump. And that is why their vote translates into, I support Joe Biden because I am under the impression that Joe Biden is the candidate who can beat Donald Trump. And my number one issue is beating Donald Trump. And if it's not Joe Biden, I'm going to choose Joe Biden in the primary, or I think I will right now anyways. But if it's not Joe Biden in August of 2020, then I'm going to vote for that person. I'm going to vote for a soup can if there's a D next to them. I suspect that Bernie Sanders, who has the second greatest appeal to black voters, has the greatest appeal to voters of color, broadly speaking, but I think that just came out in the latest poll by a slight margin, that there is a higher percentage of low propensity voters amongst that support. And so, in other words, you're going to have all the people who are going to vote against Trump. They're going to show up on election day, but there is a small margin of people who otherwise might not vote, who are intending to vote. And really, at the end of the day, that's what this is about. I think that's what the Sanders campaign is about. But if you want to beat Donald Trump, that's what it's all about. How do you bring out the voters who are not already going to show up?
Turn out.
Yeah. And then the question is, how do you maintain that power? Barack Obama had that power. He had the apparatus. He had motivated the people. But in the end, he was only using it for an electoral purpose, so much so that he basically killed the movement that he had built because he didn't want it competing with him outside the White House. This is all well reported. It was reported in real time. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew everybody thought that they want, like during the summer after he was nominated, word went out, do not donate money to any outside groups. We want all the donations come in here. We will take care of it. And people thought, oh, they're control freaks. Fine. They're building, Obama for America. It's going to be huge. And that's going to live outside. And that's going to be his muscle. That's going to be his street muscle. And then instead what they did is we need to starve that street muscle so that it loses a lot of its muscle and it becomes just flab so that it cannot push us and dictate to us what we're going to do on the inside. Sanders' campaign is built literally on the complete opposite theory of change. So much so that it's like the movement is running parallel to the campaign, or it's integrated into the campaign, but as much for after the campaign as it is for the electoral purposes short term. So we'll see. We'll see. Wow. That's the thing. Iowa is going to mean everything.
Those are some really disparaging remarks about Obama.
That's correct.
Well, I've seen word that Obama's waiting to see if Bernie pulls ahead and he's going to come out and be in the anti-Bernie coalition. So he might kneecap Bernie if he pulls ahead. We'll see what that. I assume he wouldn't he would prefer not to have to do that. But
what's that?
To kneecap Bernie if Bernie starts pulling away.
Who?
Obama. There's a report going around. That
you think he would prefer to not?
He'd prefer that Bernie doesn't pull ahead because.
Oh yeah, that would say the other thing I want to talk about. Yeah, this is being regurgitated in a story about Bernie surging, but former President Obama has reportedly told those close to him that he'd speak out against Sanders if he continues to build momentum. Some believe that other party leaders would join a concerted anyone but Bernie effort to block him from winning the nomination if it comes to that. Look, the bottom line is, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's as far as Obama would go. If we see it, we're going to see it in January. Or we're going to see it, sometime like in, March in the run up to Super Tuesday. There is a plan out there. I don't know what it is and I don't know who has it. But somebody's saying if he achieves X, then by this date, then we're going to have to do something. And then it's going to be all hands on deck because it will be interesting to see how far they will go. And I don't know who they are. Maybe it's Obama or maybe it's just people who are invoking Obama's name because they think it's effective. I suspect that Obama would not want Bernie. I think, my sense is they haven't been thinking about it that much.
Well, he said that he would. He'd intervene if Bernie seems like he's running away with it.
Well, he hasn't said that publicly.
Oh, right. But like it was reported by
Well, no, I just read it.
Yeah.
I just literally read it. But I don't know if that's people who are invoking Obama's name or if Obama would actually do that. I mean, there's a difference. I say to you, like, Jamie, you can tell your friends that if anybody, has Digby on the show, that I'm going to blacklist them. That's different from them actually having Digby on the show and me actually blacklisting them. It's we could see that in other words, the reports that Obama would do something could be just all that Obama's going to do. We don't know.
Try to do it with reports now, so you don't have to own it.
Yeah, that counts as doing something.
It definitely does,
Obama
because
is absolutely in control.
Well, of course,
of
he
this.
could speak against it anytime he wanted to.
Of course, he could come out and say, like, I've seen the articles. That's not true. I'm not going to do that.
I guess saying that he would in and of itself constitutes an act.
That could be like, it also could be like, Biden goes and like, come on, man, endorse me. And Obama would say, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just say if Bernie wins, then I'll have a problem with him. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to endorse you because I need to save my credibility for the anyone but Bernie campaign.